These are the boys of Pointe du Hoc. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. These are the heroes who helped end a war. When President Reagan spoke those words on the cliff called Pointe du Hoc, 50 years had passed since those boys stormed ashore to retake France and Europe from the insanely cruel grasp of Hitler and Nazi Germany. Many in his audience on June 6, 1984, had been among those who fought on that cliff 50 years earlier. Last Saturday, June 6, 2020, marked 76 years since D-Day. Charging the beach and climbing that cliff turned them from boys to men in a matter of mere hours. Until recently, the standard military tactics were sneak attack at night, line up and charge headlong into each other, and siege. At Pointe du Hoc, it was a headlong charge up a steep cliff into the teeth of enemy fire. When Joshua was preparing to take the city of Jericho, he may have wondered if God was going to do something grand, but likely expected a lengthy siege and bloody battle. In those days, taking a walled city required the attacking army to send wave after wave of soldiers against the walls until they overwhelmed the defenses. Or, if that was considered too costly, they would wait months, perhaps years, for the city to starve and surrender, or, unable to mount a defense, fall to an attack. So we can imagine Joshua's initial surprise when God told him how Israel would take Jericho. Instead of a long siege or deadly series of attacks, God was going to give them the city without them having to storm the walls or wait them out. They were going to march around the city, and God was going to make the walls fall down. Joshua 6, verses 1 through 5. And it was clear that Joshua believed God because he did what God said, even though it made no sense militarily. We can imagine the folk in Jericho wondering what was happening when Israel silently marched around the city every day for 6 days, the only sound coming from the trumpets leading the Ark of the Covenant, Joshua 6, 8 through 14. On the 7th day, they started early, marched around the city 7 times, and after the 7th time, they stopped, faced the city, shouted, and the walls fell down, Joshua 6:20. Much shorter than Reagan's speech, that shout was a bold declaration of God's unimaginable power. Will we learn the lessons of Jericho? The first one is simple. Believe what God says. It can't get any more simple than that. The second lesson is just as simple, but it's the one so many trip over today. Do what God says. Most in so-called Christianity are quick to claim faith in God, to state boldly their belief in what God says. But when pressed to do what God says, all of a sudden that faith is replaced by doubt, disbelief, and disobedience. Belief without obedience isn't really belief. Be baptized in water for the remission of sins, we're asked? Yes, it's all through the New Testament. Yet many answer, nope, not going to do it because it just isn't necessary. Really? Obeying God isn't necessary? What walls of doubt, disbelief, and disobedience have you built around your heart? Isn't it time to let them fall down? Morning Minutes in the Bible will be back tomorrow with another appeal to believe and obey the will of God. Until then, this is James McClenny hoping you have a great day.